Hello and welcome to Mystic Visions. This is a monthly tarot reading for Leo for the month of February. And this is a general reading using my adaptation of the Celtic Cross. And if you're a regular subscriber to the channel, you may have noticed I haven't been quite as active as usual. And that's because my daughter was just born on January 23rd. So I may just kind of do the monthly readings for a little while until things settle down and then maybe see from there. But I'm still here. Alright, so let's see what's going on for the Leos. Get a nice shuffle going on here. Every day I'm shuffling. Alright. So Leo, we got Queen of Cups for you. Let's see what we have. Alright, interesting. Alright, so we have a concentration of wands here. And you got one or two swords, one coin, one cup. So a little bit more action going on here, or determination, willpower. You also have two tens here, as well as the 10 in the major arcana. So you have all tens right here. Very interesting. So let's see what that means. So your current situation is the Queen of Cups here. Queen of Cups is generally good at maintaining her emotional state, or kind of like keeping herself together, not letting her emotions kind of get the best of her, but instead of being overcome by emotions, she's able to use them, utilize them as a tool. She's got a very strong intuitive side, and she has that because she doesn't reject certain emotions. She kind of allows the emotions to hit her, and she doesn't cling to them. She just kind of feels them and moves on, you know? And so she's able to listen to her emotions because she's not constantly fighting them. She's not rejecting them. She's a little bit more introverted, but she's also a very kind and usually nurturing, or a good shoulder to cry on. So this is the current situation for you. So you're either you're feeling kind of balanced, you're feeling kind of good about it. Your emotions are not really out of control or anything, and you may be a very valuable resource to those around you to kind of maintain this emotional wellness. What you have crossing you is this Chariot in the reverse. This is kind of saying that maybe you feel a little less accomplished than normal. And this may be where the wands are coming into it, and also where the tens are coming in. There's also a warning here. The tens that you have are not the cheeriest of the tens. There's a lot more of a cheery kind of end to the story of the cups, and also of the coins. Those are a little bit more of kind of like happily ever after energies, which indicates that, there's a lot more room for you to fall into those particular elements, whereas with action and thought, it's really easy to overdo it. And then also with this Wheel of Fortune, there can be a little bit of a kind of a rat race energy, or a frustration, or like chasing your own tail almost can come with that. So there's a warning there for you not to be too dissatisfied with this current situation, being the Queen of Cups. It's a really important place to be, a really great place to be. So don't feel too dissatisfied, like you don't have enough accomplishments under your belt, or that your horizons are not broad enough. And it's natural to feel that to a degree, but don't take it too far is the warning here. What you're leaving behind is this Ace of Swords. So this is kind of a new thought or a new idea. There could have been something recently that you have, like an idea that presented itself and you thought, well, maybe this will go a particular way, and you've either progressed down that road and kind of acted on that, or it's kind of just maybe another day, and you kind of haven't. But for whatever reason, there was some kind of new idea that came up that you were interested in, and you're kind of leaving that idea behind and moving on to something else, right? What you're moving toward is this Six of Wands in the reverse. Very similar to the Chariot. In fact, if you look at these cards, and I'll flip them upright. If you look at these cards, look at the figure. They're almost doing the same thing. And this fella has a wand as well in his hand. This one does as well. Both of these have like a victorious type of energy, and a similar meaning in the reverse, where there's this sort of feeling of a lack of accomplishment or a lack of self-confidence or something like that. So this is kind of what you're headed into, is that feeling. What I would say here is, the major arcana cards are a little bit more like, well, the difference between the minor and the major. The minor is kind of like the weather. This is the daily energies, and it shifts quite dramatically from day to day sometimes, especially if you live in this part of the world. But there's a big shift that occurs in the weather, and it's a little bit more chaotic and a little bit more temporary at the same time. So, it may be storming really, really bad today, but tomorrow it may be sunny and blue skies, right? So things in the major arcana have a tendency to sort of pass away a little bit quicker, whereas major arcana is really kind of more like the seasons. It's a grander and longer time scale change. So what's going on here is that over the course of your life, there has been a feeling of a lack of accomplishment or something like that, or it's just not really turned out quite the way that you wanted. And what that's leading you toward is this temporary feeling of, I'm not good enough or something like that. So it's actually a good sign here, because what's happening is you fed into this energy for a long time, possibly without even really knowing it or without thinking about it. And so it's leading you into this kind of temporary thing where you're just really feeling like you need to do more. You're really driven or motivated to do something else. But it's kind of a temporary situation. So it's that's a good thing, because I think ultimately this is a good place for you to be, but you're suffering from a little bit of like the grass is greener on the other side of the fence type of a situation here, where you want there to be a little bit more fulfillment or something like that, or accomplishment, right? What we have in the foundation, which is kind of like, where does this lesson stem from? Where is this welling up from in the subconscious? What's going on under the hood here? You have the Eight of Wands. So what the Eight of Wands means is that there's some daily, or not necessarily daily, there's some spontaneous action that occurs. So this being in the subconscious, what this has meant is that like every single moment has this spontaneous and wonderful mystery about it. The only reason that we tend to get bored or see things as mundane is because we kind of condition ourselves to think it's mundane. But if you really think about it, if you really kind of peel back the layers of life, every single moment is really amazing. I mean, you're sitting on the surface of this big ball of molten rock that's flying through space. And as far as we know, there's nowhere else out there where this occurs. And, I'm sure maybe one of these days we'll discover it. But as far as we know, we're the only thing that's out there. So it's really kind of just magic that life even continues. It seems so amazing that all this is actually occurring. So this is about really learning to see the magic in every situation and to avoid these sort of delusions of grandeur, or to avoid trying to be a little too ambitious, because it's kind of paradoxical, but the more you search for those feelings of accomplishment or of grand adventures, the more you reinforce the lack of that in your own life. So it's kind of like a Chinese finger trap. It's like the more you try to be wealthy, the more you are reinforcing in your mind the idea that you don't have enough. So on the flip side, you can kind of hack that and you can say, well, I have everything that I need. And then you're sort of reinforcing the idea of abundance in your life, and you begin to see it around you, because it's really just a matter of perspective, right? There's no absolute objective truth to how mundane your life is. It's really just how you see it. So if you're constantly priming yourself or training yourself through the subconscious to see things as a little bit more boring or mundane, then you're really not doing yourself so much of a favor, particularly if you're in a pretty good spot. So, take stock of what's going on around you, and like if it's really kind of serving you, or you're in a good position where you fit. It kind of, what's evoked in my mind here is kind of like if you've ever seen the movie The Nightmare Before Christmas, and Jack Skellington, he had a very good thing going, and he was a real pro at what he did, but he was kind of feeling like there was something else out there. He was kind of feeling like maybe he wanted to try doing something different, but in the end, when he tried something different, it wasn't necessarily bad that he tried to do something different, although it didn't work out very well. But he kind of discovered that he enjoyed where he was, and that was the whole process of the story, is to discover that where you are is a pretty good place. On your mind here is the Knight of Coins, and this can mean that you're interested in getting some quicker progress. You're maybe frustrated because you feel like life's going a little too slow, and you're wanting to speed things up. You're wanting to have some aggression in your movement. You're wanting to be quite, we'll say, determined or deliberate in what happens, and you want to see some action as the result of what you're doing. And you want it to pay off as well. There's kind of wanting to get wealth a little bit quicker. So, if you're investing, you might be a little bit more drawn to higher risk, higher reward situations than, steady growth over a long period of time. And this could also be coming out of that sort of feeling that things are boring or mundane, right? So what we have for your advice here is the Ten of Wands. So this is a really important one for you here. What this is saying is, with each of the different elements or the suits, there is kind of a journey that occurs between the Ace and the 10. And then there's like a further journey that occurs sort of between the Page and the King, right? But the 10 kind of represents the final understanding of what the element really means or what it represents. And in the Ten of Wands, even though this is sort of like the end goal for the Wands, it's not a very pleasant picture, because what you have here is a fellow who's very over encumbered. He's trying to carry all these sticks, and there's too much for him. He's dropping them, he's fumbling all over the place. It's a big struggle, and it's not pleasant. He's not feeling very good about this. And what this is a representation of is that with action, a really big part of action is efficiency, or acting in a way that is effective. In other words, you can, try to brute force things, and you can just work. But that's not going to bring you happiness. All it's going to do is pile more and more on. There's no end to the amount of things that could be done. And that's one of the great things about life. You can do anything, and you just can't do everything. There's not enough time or energy available for you to accomplish everything that you need to accomplish. So to master action, to master this, you have to really ask yourself what's important. You have to get your priorities straight. So this is definitely a card all about prioritization and figuring out exactly how you can be the most efficient with your action, instead of just really trying to throw everything at it. Because you will end up, you may have some extra energy right now, but there'll be a time, if you keep going down this road of doing more and more, there'll be a time when there's a need for you to get some rest and relaxation here. Now, what we have for your environment is the Ten of Swords. And the Ten of Swords is, again, a kind of bleak picture, but this person is at the end of the line. There is nothing else that they can do. They've tried to think their way through everything, But when it comes down to it, the reason that this is a kind of a grim picture at the end of the Road of Swords is because thoughts in and of themselves are never a solution. And this is really important to recognize. Thoughts are not a solution. Thoughts are a problem in and of themselves, right? So in other words, if you didn't have any problems, you would never have anything to think about, right? And think about like games, right? We play games as a pastime, but every game is really taking a situation that was perfect the way that it was and breaking it just to give you something to do, to entertain yourself, right? So thought in and of itself represents problems. And if you're focused on problems all the time, then you never really get into the action part of making something a solution. And it should be that all that thinking kind of resolves itself in some resting place. But what happens is a lot of people, they don't know how to let go of the thoughts. They don't know how to put them down. Thoughts are represented by a sword, right? But do you want to really be like sleeping with your sword all the time? Is that a great way to live life? You know, some people might romanticize that idea. But really, wouldn't it be nicer just to be able to lay the sword down, you know, and just use it when it's needed, instead of having to cling to it all the time? So this is what's going on in the environment. There's a lot of there's probably a lot of ambition and people that are provoking you to feel like you're not doing enough. So just kind of remember that your role here may not be to get on board with all that action and doing, but it may be to show them that you can be happy even without all that ambition, right? And a lot of times you can be much happier without that ambition. So the Fears card is the Wheel of Fortune in the reverse here. So this can mean like you're a little bit afraid of sort of bad luck, or just random things happening that mess you up, that are hard to deal with, struggles that are coming, just the sort of normal things in life that occur. And the problem is being afraid of those things doesn't really necessarily prepare you for them. So in other words, you can be, you know, really diligent trying to prepare yourself for some eventuality, but it probably is not going to come at you exactly the way you think. So there's always a need for you to adapt to every situation. And really the best way to get through those fears is to just keep this demeanor of, you know, whatever happens, I'm going to do my best to get through it. I'm going to work through it. I'm only going to do the best I can, and I don't need to worry about it because of that, you know. So preparation, it's really kind of a double-edged sword, because you try to prepare for what's going to happen, and really all it does is it makes you a little bit less prepared for when the unexpected happens, because you can never really predict what's going to occur. So the more you become comfortable with that, the more you kind of get this attitude of going with the flow, the more protected you really are from the unknown. And so the final outcome, or the overall message here, is the Emperor. The Emperor, this is more of a masculine attitude. So there's kind of you're moving toward a little bit more of an authoritative and controlling type of an atmosphere or way of life. And, you know, contrast that with the Queen of Cups. She's got a little bit more of a soft hand in the way that she runs things, whereas the Emperor has a little bit more of a forceful or authoritative way, masculine type of a way of dealing with the situation. And, you know, the way this works is that this is kind of the direction you're headed, like right now. And the fact that you're sitting here looking at this reading, you may not like that direction, and you have plenty of freedom, free will to choose a different direction. But the point of this reading is to say that this direction that we've been describing here is headed more in this type of a place. So a big question to ask yourself is, right now, you know, who do you want to be more like? Do you want to be this Queen of Cups, or do you want to be the Emperor? Which of these kind of floats your boat a little bit more? It's not that the Emperor is an inferior path to the Queen. You know, and our warning signs here have been a little bit more extreme, perhaps even hyperbolic, to teach you the sort of boundary on the other side of this direction. But the Emperor's not a bad place to be. So the question is really, which of these are you really more keen on? Are you a more emotional person? Do you view your emotions as more of a strength, or would you rather not have them? Do you view them as a weakness, and are you trying to get into more of a cold hard fact and authority type of a situation? And that's up to you. So anyway, that's about it for today's reading. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you again on the next reading. Have a good one.